I've now been joined by Ed Aston, who is also currently out here along with several other members of Birmingham University, currently in the prep camp for the summer ahead, looking forward to what we've just been chatting off camera on, his potential goals now. But we're just going to first touch upon, Ed, is just perhaps if you just go back over the winter and then particularly the indoor season, just building up to now, your thoughts on how things have gone, because perhaps notably you were third at the National, so National indoors, and then that qualifying later you got the qualifying time at the Birmingham Grand Prix and successfully made your senior debut at the World Indoor Championships in Doha. So if you want to just talk through perhaps January to March time, your just thoughts on how things went during that period.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty good run into January, no real disruption in the season, and then got into January, started racing, went abroad for a couple of races in Bratislava and Vienna. Perhaps overcooked the training slightly before those two races. Ended up racing there a bit tired. I really only went there with one goal, and that was the World Indoors. That's what I wanted to get out of the indoor season, was to get to that championship and retain my national title doing so. And went abroad for the races. Didn't hit the times I wanted to run because I was basically overtrained. Came back, rested up, did the nationals. Again, slightly disappointing. Perhaps I was still a little bit heavy-legged when I went there. Rested up for another week, went to Birmingham, and that was probably possibly the first race, maybe the nationals, but the first race where I was actually fresh.
Okay.
And the winter training could really pay dividends, and obviously ran the world qualifying time. And then Doha, a little disappointing to be honest.
Okay.
I felt like I was in sub 148 shape, definitely. I think the occasion kind of got to me a bit. I was a little bit nervous, ended up running very tight, and that kind of cost me my time, expended a bit too much energy, very tight shoulders. So, a little disappointing, but it's made me, hopefully I've learned from it.
Sure.
It's made me hungry, I'm not happy just going to these champs.
Right.
I feel I belong at these champs.
Okay, good.
And I want to achieve at these champs. So, basically what I'm doing here is putting in a lot of hard training to hopefully achieve my goals in the summer.
Yeah.
So we're looking at European outdoors is the main goal. 146.6 is the B standard, so quite a chunk off my PB. But
Yeah.
I feel it's doable. I feel the shape I showed indoors and also the consistency I showed outdoors last season.
So I suppose there's perhaps not necessarily the disappointment of Doha, but it's just further fueled the fire in terms of motivation.
Yeah,
first senior champ, and now you're looking ahead to really pushing on from that. And
yeah, I mean, I know I'm capable of making these champs, and I know, having been there, that I belong on that stage, and I need to start doing things on that stage.
Okay.
So really, yeah, the Europeans is the main target for the summer. I'm looking here, and then also Commonwealth Games after that.
Okay, good. What's your thoughts on regards to not necessarily how easy that's going to be, but in terms, obviously, I know you've got great confidence in your own ability that you could perhaps run these times. But if we perhaps look at those around you, sort of touched upon in previous interviews, Michael Rimmer seems to be not a distant sole leader, but he does seem to have that world-class sort of status at the moment, and the rest of the UK guys are sort of in that next rung behind. There's a lot of guys like yourself, Andrew Assaji. I've just been speaking to Chris Smith. I know Ricky Susie's going to be coming back, who are perhaps in that 47, 48 bracket. What's your sort of thoughts on perhaps competition for those spots in terms of getting B standards, A standards? What's your approach going to be in terms of those championships?
I think it's going to be very difficult. I think everyone is starting to step up their game. I think the thing is, in my view, that the 800 in this country almost missed a generation.
Okay.
There's sort of a gap, so which is why Rimmer's kind of on his own.
Yeah.
And I think the guys, like you said, you've got Andrew Sargi, Paul Bradshaw, myself, Chris, we're all a couple of years younger, and it's just taking a little bit of time to develop our talent. And I think you'll see at the Nationals this year, it'll be a lot more competitive race. It won't be a one-horse race.
I was going to say, it's good to see,
all his way.
if we touch back, say, perhaps the last summer sort of thing, it was, like you say, yourself, Andrew and Paul, who were sort of getting into those 48s, 47s, and it's encouraging signs that we're perhaps getting a bit more depth than necessarily.
Yeah.
We're not sure we're having the quality, but like yourselves, you're all still young athletes and progressing. So it's really exciting to see, hopefully, that a lot of you will kick on this summer and see you at the Europeans and at the Commonwealths. And is it, like I say, is one taking preference over the Commonwealth, the main aim, the Europeans more of a focus? Which one, or ideally is it both, like I say?
I think ideally it's both, yeah. The Europeans is what I'm starting my season gunning for. That's the first one. It's in July. You got to get out nice and fast, nice and early. I think if I go for that, so I'm targeting that 146.6 speed standard. Hopefully, run that a couple of times. Hopefully, do well at the trials. Then I think the Commonwealth is almost, because the Commonwealth is so late. It's very difficult to gear your season towards peaking there, because you've actually got to, because selection's early August, you've got to have a season to get selected off.
I'm sure.
And then once you're selected, then you can start doing the training for Commonwealth. So I think, going to the Europeans, and then if selected for the Commonwealth, then you start to address it. But you can't really, I don't think you can really just hope you're going to get selected for Commonwealth and take October as your summer season.
Okay, good. What I just want to perhaps just do now is just sort of rewind a bit over the years in terms of, because I've touched on, you're currently a Birmingham University student, you're based in Birmingham, but you've been coached for a long time from your coach back home, Mike Smith down in Cambridge. Yep. I think what perhaps an issue that a lot of perhaps people who may be looking into this is perhaps the decision that they make when they go to performance institutes, the big three, sort of St Mary's, Loughborough and Birmingham, is sort of those who perhaps done well previously with a coach. It's that conscious decision of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, should just stay where I am. But then against the high performance centres where there's access to all these facilities and things. Do you want to just talk about, because as I see, it's been successful for yourself, you continue to improve each year while still under the guidance of your coach. Do you want to just talk how that relationship's worked over the years?
I think it's very much an individual thing. I think you can't say this person did this, so I'm going to follow in their footsteps, or this person did that, I'm going to do what they did. I think it does depend on the individual coach-athlete relationship. From my point of view, I've been with Mike for 10 years. I'm still improving. He knows me better than anyone else, and I think it'd be detrimental at this stage in my athletics to go to someone else.
Okay.
What I will say is, if athletes are changing coaches, I think it's very important, if possible, to keep some sort of liaison with their previous coach.
Yeah.
Because that person has got them where they are, and whilst they may feel that it might not work, sort of the long distance relationship type thing, I think the coach does know the athlete well, so it's important to try and keep him a little bit in the loop, because there's certain things they may spot that the new coach isn't familiar with.
And they can learn from the background because they've been working with him. But I think perhaps one of the good things you've noticed about your coach is he's extremely honest, and he knows what his capabilities is. You've talked, he's not necessarily relatively inexperienced, but young in the coaching game.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on areas such as strength and conditioning where he doesn't perhaps have the expertise. He's more than willing for yourself to go and consult with others who perhaps have more specialists in that. Do you want to just talk about?
I think when I got to Birmingham, we realised that, on my gap year actually as well, we realised that S&C was an area I needed to start working on. I'd hit that stage where, my training was upping, so I needed to make sure I was robust enough and try and avoid injuries. And I think Mike and myself realised that possibly the level I was at was slightly higher than the level he was at with regards to S&C training. So with the help of UK Athletics, I got set up with Rudy at the Birmingham High Pack, and he's been taking my S&C, liaising with Mike obviously about sort of how it fits in with my other training, but basically taking my S&C program since, and it's worked really well. And I think that's one of the things all coaches, to be honest, have to be aware of, is that there's certain aspects they're going to be good at and certain aspects they're not, and if they aren't as strong in certain fields, maybe that's when they need to bring someone in.
Okay, good. Well, like I said, I think it's good that you're just getting out there, because you're a notable success of this thing, but there are perhaps those who, when they go away, it doesn't necessarily work out. But I think the main message is, as long as there's honesty and sort of good communication skills, there's no reason why you can perhaps relocate and still maintain good relationships. So good to hear. So now again, just looking ahead to the summer, obviously you said things are going well currently in Villamora. When are we going to see you opening off at Eston open his 2010 outdoor campaign?
I think probably the Bucks Champs. I'm planning on doing a 400 there.
Okay.
Get my legs turning over. It's just before my exam. It's a bit early to be doing a full 800 championship, so 3 rounds. So yeah, I'd like to get legs turning over at 400 at the Bucks Champs, and then probably looking at the Loughborough International. Hopefully I can get a guest spot there. Yeah. And start putting some fast times down there.
Okay, and as regards to tackling those fast times, you see domestic such as the BMC sort of good as an opportunity, or are you going to be looking, I know you went abroad indoors, so are you perhaps going to be where the races take you, or?
I think there's going to be a certain amount of where the races take me. I think possibly there's not a lot of time before the Nationals in June. You have got to be careful that you don't over race. I think one of the advantages I'll have this year over last year is I'll be able to put in a solid amount of training in May,
Mhm.
whereas last year, because of my exam timetable, that was a bit difficult to do. I was
Sure.
fairly stressed. I had 6 exams in 12 days or something, so day on, day off, quite difficult to fit my training in. This year, my University of Birmingham's been very accommodating. They've let me split the year, and so I've actually only got 3 exams spread out over 2 weeks this year,
Okay.
which means a lot less pressure on the exam time, which means I can really knuckle down to training a lot more.
Good. Well, all the best for the summer campaign, Ed. Hopefully we'll
Very much.
catch up with you again and see how things are progressing, but crucially see if we can get you at that European teams and at the very least perhaps getting in that Commonwealth spots again. So
Thank
thanks
you.
so much for your time.